his dad wasn't always around to give him a hand. He was always working, which it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but as a kid, it wasn't always a good thing either. You want your parents to kind of see what you're doing with your life and, see you grow up. And I wanted to make sure that, he had the support and he had the, the praise for what he's doing. And, hey, you're doing good, man. Like, don't worry about these little things. You're going to continue to grow. No one's going to stop you from doing that.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you today. And man, are we excited about concluding the series. We have none other than Billy Alfaro hanging out with us today. And man, are we excited to have him in the studio with us. We're going to be listening to him talk about his story. And we want to hear kind of the exciting conclusion of what has been a really cool and unique 3-part series that we just kind of stumbled our way into, Brian. But before we do that, we want to focus in on our quote, and then we're going to be talking about mentorship and all things related to looking out for somebody.
The more gratitude you give away, the more will come back to you. The more you help others, the more they will want to help you. Brian Tracy.
All right. I know that's you're a big fan of him, Brian.
I'm more like a son to him than a big fan. More like a son that he met one time and probably does not remember the slightest bit. Does not remember the slightest bit. As the first audio book, whatever I ever listened to in selling was Brian Tracy's. Long story about my mentor making me listen to it a 1 hour tape 100 times that I had to flip over every half hour.
Yeah.
The cassette player. And then we went to Tom Hopkins boot camp a few months later, and Brian Tracy was one of the speakers. Don't think I've ever shared that with you, buddy.
Nice.
Yeah, so I met Tom Hopkins and Brian Tracy at the exact same time in like 2004 or something like that, 2005. At that time, I didn't really understand the impact that either one of those dudes was going to have on my career. But yeah, I could never get enough Brian Tracy. And we're working on getting him on the show, which would be a big treat for yours truly and a lot of people who work here who have been impacted by him. And I'm guessing a whole lot of people who listen to this show who have been impacted by him.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. And we're going to keep working on those angles, and hopefully we can make that happen. But for today's show, we want to focus in on mentorship, like I talked about earlier. And so our guest today, Billy, has a really unique story. And you've kind of heard his name thrown around in the past 2 podcasts as somebody who has been a mentor. And what's unique about it is the fact that he's only 30 years old and has been speaking into the lives of men who are only a few years younger than himself, excuse me. And it's an awesome story. And I wanted to spend some time talking about mentorship because I think that is something that is unfortunately overlooked in really all of life. So many times we get so focused on what we are doing. Like, what are my goals? What are my plans? What do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? And if we're not careful, we get in kind of that tunnel vision where it's like nobody else exists and we're the only one that matters. And I think that's really short-sighted and frankly selfish, because there's so many other people around us that are craving, are just hungry for somebody to speak into their life and speak meaning and purpose and challenge and growth into them, and to develop them up and call out the greatness that is within them, and to speak into the truth that can blossom into something beautiful within them. And that's the type of waste no day mentality that I think is really overlooked in today's world. because we often get just too focused on ourselves. And so I want to challenge everybody who's listening to this podcast. If you are in the elder camp, and I don't mean you're necessarily old, I just mean that you have a maturity that is perhaps beyond your years, or that is certainly above those of the people that are around you. I challenge you to seek out somebody and ask to mentor them. Ask to be the person that is going to challenge them, to lead them, to train them, to work with them. This is like a one-on-one thing. And I think that it's a beautiful opportunity for you to give back, because I guarantee you, wherever you are at right now, somebody did that for you, and probably more than someone's did that for you. And the meaning of that is solely selfish if you never return that favor, if you never pay it forward. Now, the flip side of this conversation is if you're on the younger side, the immature side, the I need some help side, you have to be open to that. Mentorship is a two-way street. It requires both a teacher and a willing student. And if you're walking around saying, I don't need nothing from nobody, if you're all about, I'll find my own way, then you're missing out, because there is so much wisdom to be gained from those around you if you're just willing to open up your ears and your heart to actually applying it. And that's why I really love Billy's story, because he's actually living that out. And you've heard it in the previous podcast, the meaning that mentorship, not just from him, but from other people, has had upon some young men's lives.
Yeah, all three of the 3-part series. First, John Perez, then Brandon Hernandez, and then Billy Alfaro talk about mentors mentors they've had all the time here in this building, and they talk about people who have helped them. They're very grateful human beings. They just ooze gratitude all the time, and they're quick to give credit. They're also quick to help. Help each other, help anybody who needs help. They're products of great mentors, and they try to be great mentors themselves. Almost one after the other, these guys mentored each other in various ways and helped each other get to where they're at now. And they will continue. These guys are so young. They'll continue to help each other get where they're going. And I'm excited to revisit this trilogy a year from now or something like that, and just redo it all over and see where everybody's at. And what
we should see if we could get them all on at the same time, like a year from now. That'd be cool.
Yeah, a year from now. Well, the 4th installment of the trilogy. Get them all. Just because it's going to be a blast to be in this room.
We're pulling a Matrix move over here, huh? Make a trilogy, and then like 10 years later, we'll pull out a 4th episode.
Yeah. So you got me all excited. Now I need to fast forward to Christmas so we can see that 4th Matrix movie.
Yeah, Brian, it is exciting. And I think, man, if the world had better mentors and the world had more willing students, it would be a better place. And the home services industry specifically would be a better place. So I tell you what, this episode is releasing Thanksgiving week. And this Thursday is American Thanksgiving. And I'm not sure I can think of much of a better example of your expression of thanksgiving and gratitude than you to give it on and pass it on to someone else, to give that gift to somebody else this Thanksgiving. You know what? You can start looking for that person and start seeking them out and seeing what you can find and get that relationship set up just in time for the first of the year, and boom, you have yourself a mentoring relationship. And that's so good.
Yeah, and before we bring Billy on, we just want to say we've had a surge in downloads here lately, and a surge in people listening, and also ratings, reviews on the Apple podcast app. And we want to say thank you for those who took the time to rate the podcast. And
absolutely,
I can't tell you how important both downloads and reviews are to a podcast. It's what makes the podcast move up the list when people are looking for this type of show. If you haven't given us a rating and you think we deserve a 5-star rating,
and if you don't,
yeah,
it's Thanksgiving, bro. Do us a solid.
Yeah, go to the Apple Podcast app, scroll down to where it shows how many reviews it has and what stars it is, and press write review, and do us a favor and tell us what you think about the show. Give us any feedback in there, any ideas you have, like we did a few episodes ago. If we see one we like, we're more than happy to read it on air, and maybe even invite you to come on the show. Or certainly we take ideas from the comment section and use that as a feedback upon which we build, the next episodes. I'm going to read one now, although the name is just HVAC Maniac that Nate sent me earlier just because he thought it was cool. So fortunately we got the 5-star review. Greatly appreciate that. The title of the review, No Installer Interviews.
Ouch.
Ooh, yeah, you're absolutely right.
You are right.
We're going to make that happen. And then the review says, my brother told me about the show, and I like it, but y'all need some installers on there.
You are absolutely right. We do.
And we appreciate the 5-star review, despite it seemed like a 4-star rate
comment.
Yeah, comment.
Absolutely. So we'll make that happen on an upcoming episode. That way you can change that to a 6-star review, of course.
Yeah. Just add that other one somewhere.
But for right now, we're excited to put Billy Alfaro in your passenger seat. Our guest today is none other than Billy Alfaro. He is joining us as one of the plumbers here at Benjamin Franklin Plumbing in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He came to us about 1.5 years ago and has been working in the plumbing trades ever since. One of those guys that doesn't have a background in the trades industry. And so his story is really cool as he has developed into learning not only the trades, but also everything that goes along with being in the home services industry. We're super excited to have Billy on the show. So welcome, Billy.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Us. Are you a plural now, or did we invite more than one guest on?
I work as multiple people here, multiple personalities.
All right. Well, to all the clients that happen to listen to this podcast, you're never quite sure what you're going to be getting when Billy gets out there.
Which Billy?
Wouldn't be the first time I've heard that.
Well, Billy, it's good to have you on the show, man. And just so our listeners understand, this is the conclusion of a 3-part series. And how exactly do you fold into the last series? So we interviewed Jon Perez and Brandon Hernandez. Where do you fit into that mix?
Yeah, so it was homeless to homeowner by 26, and then sewer lines to SWAT team with your brother, Brandon.
Yeah.
And now Billy Alfaro with?
I don't know. I watched those two kids growing up to what they are today, and I remember Jon Perez and my brother they were always into sports, always competing against one another, and I played a lot of sports myself growing up, and made sure that with the environment they grew up around and that I grew up around, that they didn't fall under, I guess you want to say, bad habits or just following in the footsteps of bad role models. Our family life growing up wasn't always the easiest, at least in our world. So I personally tried to stay away from the house as much as possible, just because there was always a little bit of chaos, fights, arguments, that sort of thing. And so sports and the arts, I was a big artistic kid growing up, like drawing, graffiti, and sketching, or I'd be outside playing basketball with my friends, getting into as many sports as I could at school. I played football, I did wrestling, and track and field was my number one sport growing up.
Nice. Well, tell you what, before we jump into kind of the middle of the story there, let's start back at the beginning. So you're Brandon's brother.
Yep.
And you know Jon through kind of the mutual acquaintance there of Brandon being his friend, and I'm sure spending a lot of time at your house and everything. So let's kind of start at the beginning. What was life like for you, coming out of high school, and how did you end up in a plumbing truck?
So coming out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life.
Sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a theme there.
So I think that is definitely a theme between the three of us, along with some of the life
Many
things,
people.
that we grew up around. but yeah, out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Again, I was always into sports. I was always into fitness, nutrition, along with the arts. You know, I liked drawing. I liked architecture. I liked photography, videography, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And those were my interests. Those were my outlets through high school and outside of high school. I actually pursued going to. I started at community college, did maybe like 3 semesters, but kind of had to put a stop to the whole college thing after a while, just because we didn't have a whole lot of family here in the States to fall back on to be able to keep going to school and afford going to school when I had other bills to myself that I had to take care of, or watching over Brandon. You know, he had a lot of stuff going on too, and I wanted to make sure he was following a good path and he had someone to fall back on. You know, unlike me, I didn't really have a whole lot of people to fall back on just because I had to focus on myself, and family was, you know, either in Puerto Rico or on a different state. So finding someone to help you out wasn't always the easiest thing for me to do. So I wanted to make sure that he had that growing up.
And you're the oldest?
No, I'm one of the middle. One of the middle child, yeah.
But older than Brandon?
Older than Brandon, yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And were you born in Puerto Rico?
I was not. My dad served in the U.S. Navy. Served about 20 years, retired back in 2010. But my dad was stationed in Washington State at the time that I was born. And, yeah, so I was born in the States. I was born in Washington State.
Yeah.
Borderline Canadian.
Wow. And here you are in Pennsylvania.
And here I am in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So did you go back to Puerto Rico?
Yeah, so shortly after I was born, my parents had separated at some point through that process. And, you know, I grew up with my mom, so that's where I grew up, in Puerto Rico. She went to Puerto Rico shortly after.
Okay, so when Mom moved back to Puerto Rico, how old were you then?
That's I don't even remember.
Was Brandon alive yet?
No, he was not.
So that's
no.
before he was born. So he was born there?
Yeah, Brandon was born in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it was me and my oldest brother. Actually, my oldest brother was born in the States as well, or in Puerto Rico. I was the only one that was born in the States of our siblings.
So it was Puerto Rico. He's born Washington State. You were born back to Puerto Rico for Brandon.
Puerto Rico, yep.
So then how long were you in Puerto Rico?
I want to say between 99 and 2001 is when we moved back to the States. Through obviously a mutual decision with my mom and his dad. Like he mentioned in the last episode, you know, his father met his father when he came out to the States. You know, he caught wind of his dad living here in Lancaster, and he wanted to meet him, and you know, made that decision to come out here, get to know him, and liked it enough to want to move out to Lancaster.
Wow. So you called along on that ride and found yourself here in a place you'd never lived before, with a whole nother world staring at you.
Yeah. I mean, there was other things kind of influencing that decision too. The areas, like, again, Brandon mentioned it a little bit in the last podcast that he was in. We didn't grow up in the best areas in Puerto Rico. Grew up around a lot of gang violence, you know, drug influence, you know, that sort of thing. And my mom wanted to get us out of that situation as quickly as possible. And yeah, that was also part of that decision.
Yeah. Okay, so you come here into the States and you know, begin going to school and everything like that. And you said you kind of came out of school not sure what you were looking at doing, having an interest in the arts. You're pursuing some things in college, but then things kind of don't take a turn for, you know, from a financial implication and some other decisions that, you know, kind of end up dropping that. So you're looking at a partial degree in college, you know, nothing finished. You're looking at some concern for your family members. Where's your head at, and what's your next steps?
After college, or
when you made the decision that you wanted to drop out.
biggest part of that decision was I didn't have much of a choice but to stop going to college and just go straight into the workforce. Again, didn't really have a whole lot of people to rely on and fall back on for financial stability, so I had to find that myself. And there was no other choice but to work hard for the lifestyle that I wanted.
Yeah, I love that. And so at that point, where did you end up at as far as looking for a job?
I worked in, restaurant, worked in dealerships as a minor detailing position, just helping out the main detailing guys. I worked at a car wash. I worked in retail, worked at the Under Armour. I worked at Tommy Hilfiger at the time. I think when I was going to hack, I was working 2 to 3 jobs at a time. And, that was just to support at least going to college. But once it got a little too out of hand with, the stress levels, I was like, you know what, let me just focus on working and getting my finances where they need to be able to support, again, my lifestyle and be able to help my brother out as much as I could just to kind of see us flourish as best as possible.
So that point right there, I think, is something I want to explore a little bit, helping your brother out. And Brandon certainly spoke very highly of you on his episode, and it's clear that you guys have a really great relationship. But I want to dig into that. So, oftentimes you look at the firstborn in a family and you say, okay, they're naturally that type of like self-driven, self-motivated. I'm kind of the leader of the family, leader of the siblings, you might say. And they kind of conduct their personality and their way of doing things like that. You're falling in the middle, which is kind of an interesting thing because the middle children are often the forgotten ones. They're the ones that, they're not the baby, they're not the firstborn, they're just the middle. And so I'm curious, what was it about you that drove you to have such a care and a desire to see Brandon and assumedly others in your family, succeed and do well and be taken care of?
I don't know. Again, I always wanted to be a good role model for him, along with, friends and maybe his group of friends as well. I know a lot of them looked up to me, and even now I get calls from friends or family members or, just people that I know, and they just call, ask for advice. And I don't know, I've always been one to be open-minded enough to listen and see where they're coming from to try and help them out as much as possible. And even if that was the only thing I could do for them, I was good at it. I was good at being somewhat of a leader and a good support system. So, just wanting to be that support system.
Do you think that was just inherent in you? Like, did you have that from a young age, or was there something that kind of like tripped your radar to that?
Honestly, I don't know. Growing up, I was a very hyperactive kid, and our mom always like whooped our butts because, at least me personally, because again, I was such a hyperactive kid and always getting into something or always getting into trouble. But just kind of watching my mom, being the way that she was with us, she was very strict with us growing up, and we learned to be well-mannered as adults, because of her and her tough love, in other words. But seeing what she put herself through, but not knowing how else to point it in the right direction for us. She had her hands full with, me, my oldest brother, Brandon, my stepbrother, and then my oldest brother's son at the time. She had her hands full with all of us. So I guess I wanted to pick up that role to help her out as much as possible, and no one else is being the role model for everyone else. I figured, you know what? Why not me?
Why not you?
Now, Brandon texted me here a few minutes ago that certainly he was the best son. Still is. Also hold on.
I'm definitely the favorite, so
don't keep him too long. He doesn't need one more excuse to not hit the gym with me. He said he had to miss it last night for kicking the door in. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I don't know how much we can talk about the story. So
not much, maybe we'll
let's
keep it under wraps.
But who would? I got a twin brother, and we both have certain traits. We're a lot alike as twins, I guess, but we have certain things that everybody knew about me. If there was trouble, if the cops were coming knocking, probably know who that was going to be on me. If somebody made the honor roll, probably going to be my brother. Which of you, of the two of you anyway, the brothers that we've met, would you ascribe those qualities to?
I mean, I was definitely the one to push and try to push you to be better. I think Brandon had much better grades than I did, for sure. He says he wasn't too much of a smart kid in school, but he definitely paid more attention to detail when it came to classes and, making sure that his grades were pretty decent. For me, I'm
guessing you had a lot of doodles on your page.
I had a lot of doodles on my page. Yeah. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention in school, so but I was great at, sports. I was great at, athletics and just being a people person and, making friends always came easy to me. But yeah, definitely once I got to my senior year of high school and Brandon getting into sports as well and kind of following in my footsteps, I always wanted to make sure that I was, if I was able to, I'd talk to the coaches like, hey, can I work with Brandon? If it was wrestling, it's like, hey, can I work with Brandon? I want to show him a couple moves. Or track and field, him and I would go on our own, on the weekends and work on technique work or strength and conditioning, so that sort of thing, just to push him and be better. So I was definitely the one to push, and he was always the one that paid a little bit more attention to detail growing up.
For sure. So I got to ask you, Billy, I mean, I can really appreciate the fact that you have such a passion for investing in, and mentoring your family, the next generation, even your brother's friends and those types of people. Who were you looking to in that time for advice or for your own mentorship? Or, what were you doing to kind of be on the other side of that equation where somebody was speaking into your life?
My mom, for sure. She was definitely always one to have some of the best advice that I could use growing up. And she was always the person that I would contact if I had any sort of doubts, concerns, or questions about certain things. My mom was definitely the one that I would always contact, just because I knew, again, and this is probably where I get my humbleness from, but my mom taught us to be as humble as possible, not be judgmental, and have an open mind towards people that, may be going through something and may not be showing it just because, they're not good at showing their flaws, and someone's always going through something that you may not know about. So it's kind of hard for me now to just judge someone based on, appearance or the way they're talking to you. And yeah, my mom was always the person I went to for that support and that, that conversation.
It sounds like you guys must have had an incredible mother, because Brandon also spoke extremely affectionately of her and what she did for his life as well. That's really awesome. Okay, so you're working multiple jobs, trying to find your way, taking care of the bills, speaking into your brother's life, trying to figure it out, and at what point do you kind of look at your own life and say, all right, well, what am I going to be doing here?
For me, my point where I figured out that I wanted to stop being that help for him and for some other people in my family and friend groups, mostly for Brandon. I wasn't going to stop until he got to a point in his life that he didn't have to rely on me anymore. So, yeah, I pretty much waited until he was out of college to be done helping him, or at least to where he got to a point where I knew he wasn't going to need me anymore. Because, again, he didn't have that. You know, his dad wasn't always around to give him a hand. He was always working, you know, which it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but as a kid, it wasn't always a good thing either. You know, you want your parents to kind of see what you're doing with your life and, you know, see you grow up. And as a hardworking parent, sometimes you kind of lose touch of, like, what your kids are doing on a daily. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, he had the support and he had the, you know, the praise for what he's doing. And, you know, hey, you're doing good, man. Like, don't worry about these little things. You're going to continue to grow. And no one's going to stop you from doing that. So I want to be that support system.
So then how did you find your way into the plumbing truck?
So before I became a plumber here with Ben Franklin, I was working for a construction company or a drywall company, drywall framing company. I worked there for about 5 years, I want to say. And, yeah, I got to a point there where I was just kind of getting tired of dealing with the whole construction thing and the stress of some of the people that you work with. You know, you work with a lot of people that are just kind of miserable with their lives. And my attitude and my personality just does not match what they were providing me with there. And yeah, I kind of hit a dark point in my life where I was just like, you know what, I need to change. You know, I want something better. I know my values and I know my worth, and I know I can do better than this. You know, I know I'm a hands-on person. I'm great with people, you know, but what else can I do? I didn't really know or have a direction as to where to go. And then, yeah, like I spoke to Brandon, I spoke to JP, and, you know, they were both like, well, why don't we just get you an interview at Ben Franklin? I was like, don't I need a degree for that? You know, I was like, no,
believe me, John Perez would not be here.
Oh,
poor guy.
It just wouldn't be part of the trilogy if we didn't roast John a little bit.
No, I mean, yeah, I was like, what? You don't need a degree? He's like, no, dude, we do apprenticeships here. I was like, yo, call him right now. And yeah, sure enough, within, I don't know, 20 minutes, they got in contact with Brian. I remember JP saying, he's like, yo, Brian said that the only way that he's going to give Billy an interview is if Brandon calls me right now. You know, and that just made me laugh. But probably like a week later or something like that's when I came in for my interview.
Yeah, it was, I think it was the same week, but
yeah,
like end of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying on, I think it was Brandon's it was John's podcast. It was like, Billy is like somehow a mix. If John and Brandon had a kid that was older than them, it would be Billy.
The future kid.
Well, he's like, he's got Brandon's like seriousness and toughness and kind of go get it attitude, but also John's charisma, that enthusiasm that John just, you know, exudes at all times.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, to me, it was a great fit. I was pretty much willing to. You sold yourself short, buddy, because you only pushed me higher on the hourly like 4 times. I would have went 10, but too late now. I'm not doing it now.
So you wind up in the conference room here at Benjamin Franklin and sitting across the table from Brian. Never touched a piece of plumbing in your life?
Not one.
We actually did it in here, didn't we?
No, not that day. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I never, didn't know a thing about plumbing. I knew I was hands on, and I knew I could pick it up pretty quickly. So I was like, yeah, let's try it out. I mean, the worst that they're gonna say is, you know, you're not a fit.
Yeah. So what was the experience like there, Brian? You know, you're looking at a guy who has not ever been in plumbing before, and contrary to what John and Brandon's experience had been coming out of at least a schooling program where they would have actually learned about the trade. Here we are with a perfectly green apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not the first time we've done that by any stretch. And he had two other things going for him, which was, number one, he's already doing drywall, framing, and this kind of thing. Any mechanical skills like that lend themselves to plumbing or HVAC or electrical or whatever we're hiring for. Number two, having somebody like Jon here already. Not only was Jon passionate about him getting here, which means Jon will help him through learning the plumbing end, but everybody here loves Jon. So if Jon gets excited about somebody, he's going to make everybody excited about somebody, and they're more than happy to help push him through to get into his own truck. And you know how it is. Everybody wants one more person in the on-call rotation. So, and it's a good mix because while they all want somebody in the rotation, they also don't want somebody running that they're going to have to run callbacks for. So everybody wants everyone who makes it into a passenger seat here, the whole team wants them to succeed quickly. It's a good system for somebody coming up.
Yeah.
So you get signed on and you begin your newly created plumbing career. And how old are you at this point?
30.
30. All right. So starting over at 30 with a completely new industry in the trades. And I'm assuming up until this point, your construction career had not been dealing with homeowners, right?
No.
So, but you would have had some of that retail experience dealing with clients, you know, in a sales aspect as far as working with them and picking out whatever you had to offer. So you had that in the background, but for the last 5 years, you hadn't interacted at all with a homeowner and certainly nothing in context of plumbing.
Right.
Given all that context right there and where you are today, you know, what has it been like, that journey going from not knowing anything about plumbing to where you are today? And what was that learning process and everything that went into it like?
So when I first went on that ride along with Jon, and I saw the interaction that he had with his customers, his clients, my first thought was, I could do this, no problem. You know, again, talking to people was never an issue. I knew the technical side of thing was going to be a little bit more tricky because, again, I'd never been in the plumbing field whatsoever. So it was going to be a whole new experience for me on that part. Talking to customers and making them feel good about what they're going to get done was never a concern for mine. But just being knowledgeable of what I'm putting in and the repairs that I'll be making was definitely something I was a little bit more concerned about. But after, riding along with Brandon for, I don't know, however long I did, he showed me a bunch of tricks and, how to do certain things with plumbing and, repairs and what goes into these repairs, water heaters and water treatment and, just building that base for knowledge just kind of came pretty quickly. And I don't know, just having the support system here and some of the guys that I worked around was it just made it very easy to pick up on what I was going to be learning once I got into my own truck.
So a little bit of a different environment than the construction.
Oh, much different. Oh yeah, definitely.
Brendan has this thing. It's hilarious. Brendan Mackamer is our one of our two master plumber. Well, one of the two master plumbers here who are in trucks at least. And then there's Larry Rohrer who carries the master license for the company. But Brendan, he and Todd get all the ride-alongs that come in. And he has one question that he asks them every morning as they go through our communication training and see everything that we do in a morning. Looks at him and goes, "This is just like what you do at your job, right?" It's just a bunch of guys fist bumping and making fun of each other, and we have breakfast sandwiches brought in and like from the local bagel shop. It's Brendan's thing to pick on everybody who doesn't work here yet.
So Billy, I'm curious here, as you were starting to like get more involved and you begin that apprenticeship program, did you happen to come across any day where you were like, oh, maybe this was a mistake?
No.
Not at all.
No, fear to try something was never a thing for me. You know, it, it wasn't any different than getting into, first going into construction. I knew it was going to be a journey, but it was going to be a fun journey. And I like taking risks. I like, trying new things. And this was definitely a bit of both for me. And yeah, so far, I mean, my theme and my saying every time someone calls me is like, yo, can you handle this? Especially when I first got in the truck, I would look at some of this stuff and I'd be like, I guess I'll figure it out, And I was fine with that because for me, I want to problem solve as much as possible and do it myself first before I start calling people and, asking for help. I want to make sure that at least try it. I like to try it first before I start asking for help.
Was that something that I'll take care of this first before I ask for help, or like, I'll try to figure it out first before I ask for help? Was that something that you learned like in childhood, or was that something that you had made a determination in your life for some reason that this was the way it was going to be?
I think it definitely came from childhood. Not, you can't always rely on someone for help. And not everyone is able to give you the help that you want. So most times, or at least in my childhood and my upbringing, I had to figure things out on my own. And yeah, it definitely comes from a childhood thing, just being able to problem solve on your own and see what you can do with it. Trial and error. That's the only way I learned growing up.
So, Billy, speaking of learning, how long approximately was your apprenticeship, and that being defined as you sitting in the passenger seat as opposed to the driver's seat of a truck?
I believe it's probably less than 6 months.
Wow. So you literally went from not knowing the difference between PVC and PEX to being in your own truck and probably assumedly running just maintenance calls.
Yeah.
That in under 6 months. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Brandon asking me, he either called me or sent me a message, on the phone and asked me, hey, how do you feel about starting to run your maintenance calls?
Yeah.
And my first thought was, are you sure? Are you guys confident enough to put me in a truck and start running maintenance calls? He was like, I mean, I think you're more than ready to at least do that. And, we're going to try you out and see how it goes. And, I did that for, a couple weeks, jumped back into passenger side for maybe a week or two, and then back out on maintenance calls just to kind of brush up on some of the stuff I learned as I was riding along with Brennan.
So I love that, man. And so just kind of for the listening audience, what we typically do in the plumbing apprenticeship is, we'll train up a guy, send him with one of our experienced guys, and for a long time, or as long as it takes until that person is like feeling pretty confident about their abilities, and then we start them off doing plumbing inspections. So it's the ability to walk through an entire house. We actually did a podcast on it a couple of months ago in the excellent plumbing inspection, and it gives a lot of experience because you get to get in all the different parts of the home, see the water heaters, see the valves, see the faucets, see the piping and everything. And you don't have to so much worry about the troubleshooting right away, which is more the complex piece of plumbing. Mm-hmm. You can just do a lot of the review, observation, and then pointing out the things that, are a problem or could be a potential problem in the future. And so we love starting off our younger plumbers or younger experienced plumbers in that role because of that flexibility, and then develop into the more troubleshooting, the more complex jobs from there. So as you were doing that, Billy, and you got that experience, you started to get some of those maintenances and some of that, more understanding of the plumbing system under your belt. What was your mind going through as you were beginning to develop into that brand new trade, and you were starting to run your own calls, and what did that feel like?
It felt pretty good. Again, it was all. Every house that I went into and seeing how different the plumbing was in most houses, it's like, all right, so I'm doing something new. I'm learning something different. I'm learning a new skill, or a new trick on how to fix this problem. And to me, that was, that was more knowledge under my belt, which I thought was awesome. So just having more and more experience each house that I went into, and being able to apply that, from house to house, in clients' homes, it was a good feeling knowing that, it wasn't always the same thing, getting into each house, but you definitely always got into a new situation where it's like, all right, time to solve this, solve this puzzle and see how well it goes this time around. And yeah, it was always a really cool experience. It still is a pretty cool experience having to do that each home that you go into.
So Billy, I mean, you had spent so much of your life being on the mentor side of relationships, right? You were the one doing the speaking into, you were the one giving the advice, you were the one providing instruction and training and tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on the student side of things and you're receiving that. What was that role reversal like?
I like that. I like that side of being the trainee rather than the trainer. I'm always hungry for knowledge, especially in the trades, and being hands-on and just learning something new and being able to formulate something with your hands. It's a cool process because, I don't want to go into a house that, say I buy a house and I want to start making additions to a house. This is my home, my forever home. I want to get as many trades as possible under my belt so I can make those fixes and changes to my home whenever possible. And, just being able to know those things, it just makes you feel good about the knowledge that you've gained throughout your life. Some people like to, I don't know, a lot of people read books. I'm not much of a book reader or anything like that, but I'm great with my hands. I enjoy the arts, and it's like a big puzzle, being able to put something together and break it down and build it back up if you need to. So yeah, I like learning as much as possible. I enjoy constructive criticism because, it's something that I'm not seeing, someone else is seeing that I'm doing wrong or may not be doing wrong, but could do better at. If someone's pointing that out to me, then I'm okay with it.
So speaking of constructive criticism, I mean, you were coming out of an environment where it was, we'll call it probably toxic, right? Guys miserable, they're just beating each other up just because it's fun to yell at somebody and make everybody else miserable. And now you're coming into an environment, that's much more uplifting, where guys are actually caring about the team and about what's going on. So besides just learning from, the experienced plumbers, the actual trade, were you picking up other things as far as like character development and, what it means to be a team player?
Just being a better team player. I've always been a team player, and I've always enjoyed the idea of working with a team or just working with a partner. But trying to help out my partner or coworker or whatever you want to call it, just being able to help someone, it's something that I personally enjoy. I like interacting with people, and if I can't solve something myself and have someone else that can show me different ways of solving that problem, then I think we're both winning at the end of the day.
Where are we at today, as far as how long have you been doing plumbing, and what type of skills and jobs are you running today?
I want to say about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half now. I've been in with Ben Franklin doing the plumbing thing. I went from running inspections to putting in, bathroom faucets, kitchen faucets, shower, faucets, shower valves, to water heaters and water treatment.
Absolutely. And how have you felt like the learning from where you were a year and a half ago, not knowing what anything was, to today? Like, has that been kind of overwhelming to figure out all the pieces and different tools and different parts that go into it? Or have you kind of been able to figure out the streamline of the process and get yourself in a good place?
At first it was definitely a little bit on the, overwhelming side. But again, it was something new to me. So I was okay dealing with that overwhelming feeling, and then just trying to problem solve it as much as possible. But yeah, going back when I first started working with the plumbing tools and putting in the plumbing systems, and to now where, a toilet, install could have taken me 2.5 hours just because it was the first time I installed a toilet, to now I'll put one in within an hour.
Yeah.
And so just being able to break down that time, just because, again, you build that knowledge. And again, I haven't been here too long, but just being able to do that in such a short amount of time and just being able to grasp the knowledge that I've attained since I've been here, to be able to turn a 2.5 hour job for someone that doesn't know what they're doing to an hour-long process. It's a crazy feeling to me. It's like, wow, I learned that. Why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad to hear that, you've had such success, and kudos to you for being a quick study. Not everybody has the ability to learn mechanical things that quickly. And, it's a clear evidence of who you were when you first got here. That's only half of the equation, because we are residential service, and we are speaking to our audience that is also primarily in-home services. So the other half is always that client interaction, which, again, you had been coming out of a field that was not based on the client interaction at all, and you had that retail background. So how did that background in retail, and how did your just natural communication styles aid you in what a lot of people find to be the more difficult piece of residential plumbing, and that is talking to a homeowner?
So when I first got into retail, I was always a friendly person and easy to talk to type of person. I coached track and field for about 8 years, multiple different schools. So interacting with kids was always pretty easy. High school kids was always pretty easy to me, just because, I was starting a conversation with a connection of some sort, and I think I grasped that more from the retail side of things or the restaurant side of things. So talking to these customers, just looking at a piece of clothing, or, the way they interacted, or just some form of conversation, they'd say one thing and it's like, oh, that's a connection. So being able to connect with someone was always pretty easy to me. But again, being able to be open-minded enough to have that conversation with the customer, and just looking at a picture that they have and opening that conversation up with them. It's like, oh, look, were you in Hawaii or something? And they say, oh, yeah, and they just start going on a rant about it. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I've never been to Hawaii, but, I grew up in an island.
Yeah, don't get Brian started. Yeah. We've done entire podcasts on that.
Yeah. If you got your vaccine, go. If not, just hold off for a little bit.
But, for me, it'd be like, oh, going an island, I grew up in an island, and make that connection there. Obviously, two completely different places, but still a connection altogether. And, for me, it's always easy to find something to connect with a customer, or just any person in general. That was always an easy thing for me.
So you listened to Brandon's podcast, right? Brandon was telling us that he's like, man, that kid went through hell. That kid had it rough. And I'll tell you, to hang out with you, to certainly probably overly aggressively push you to role play yesterday morning in front of the group when you said no the first time. It's tough to tell that you had a rough upbringing. Would you mind going into that a little bit and telling us how you kind of came through to have the optimistic personality you do now?
Growing up, again, the lifestyle that we grew up around, it was pretty chaotic. A lot of fights, a lot of arguments, friends that we grew up around, same sort of same sort of thing, getting into drugs or just bad environment altogether. I envisioned where I wanted to be in life, and just learning from someone else's bad experiences was something that I took very personally on. And looking at those people and looking at those situations, it's like, man, this is way too stressful. Why would you want to put yourself through that on a daily basis? Why do you want to be stressed out on a daily basis? It's not fun. You're miserable, you're angry, and all you want to do is just argue and fight with people. To me, I didn't want that. I didn't want that growing up. I didn't want that for my brother. So, for me, it wasn't an option. Being miserable and being pessimistic, or having to point fingers because something didn't work out my way. That wasn't a luxury of mine. That wasn't something that I was going to allow myself to get into. So, just trying to be as happy as possible and as nice as possible, and showing people that, hey, like, you can come from a bad place in your life, but still have an optimistic mindset to grow from it. Things aren't always easy growing up, but you just got to find a positive in at least one part of your life, or that you're one part of that situation that's going to make you better. And I think some people lack that. For me, again, it wasn't a luxury that I wanted to give myself to just be miserable. I wanted to be happy, and, I envisioned myself just leading a path of, I want to be successful. I want to have this. I want to have that. And I want to show people that just because I'm dealing with these things, that I still can't have those things, so yeah, it was never a luxury of mine to
it's really cool to have the, and my twin brother and I had grown up in Detroit in kind of similar chaotic circumstances, and, just a lot of landmines around where you could easily step into the wrong thing and never quite recover.
Oh yeah.
And having the ability to, I get asked this often, I'm sure you do too, having the ability to almost see yourself from somebody else's view, almost look down at yourself standing there from a rooftop and saying, yeah, you can choose to feel or act or be this way or carry this attitude towards life, or you can choose to be optimistic and grateful. And what else is there really? Always look at the world with optimism. So everything might be going to hell right now, but I'm gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna make it. And always be grateful. Always find a reason. And you're like that. Your whole crew is like that. Brandon's like that. John's like that. Where if I see you guys in the hallway in the morning, I know when I stick my fist out, I'm gonna get a smile and a fist bump back. For those not in the plumbing trade, we don't shake hands. That's gross. I mean, but to be able to look outside yourself and look at yourself from another perspective and say, I'm not doing that. And I know where you get it. You just look at the people around you who went the wrong way, and you see a pattern form. You say there's a lack of optimism. I can never catch a break. Oh, woe is me. And then there's a lack of gratitude. They don't walk around thanking people. They walk around complaining. And you make this choice where you just go, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing it. So kudos to you. And do you have any idea where that came from? Do you have any idea how you landed that ability to see yourself from another perspective?
It probably came from just a lot of negatives from growing up. And seeing where certain people were just dealing with so much stress, and it was, I guess, more of an epiphany. It's like, dude, you're always angry. Why do you want to be angry all the time? I don't want that. So it's easy. It's very easy to be mad and angry and pessimistic and point fingers for the problems that you're dealing with. That's the easy part. The hard part is, again, being the optimistic person, being the upbringing person, always having a good mindset or just wanting to show positivity to people. That's really hard because not a lot of people know how to do that, and they don't always have the best, source of leadership when it comes to having that optimism, or someone that's teaching them how to be more optimistic. And hey, like, things look nasty now, but they're gonna get better, and not everyone has that to fall back on to show them those.
Well, the part you said about treating people with positivity, so many people in my life, and I'm sure your life and your life, Nate's, and the life of you guys listening in your trucks, they wait for somebody to deserve their positive influence. And it's like you're waiting for your turn when the person ahead of you is not getting their turn. Somebody has to just step out of line and take the turn, and then it's funny how everybody follows suit.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when you got here, I'm not waiting for anybody to smile before I'm grabbing their shoulder and saying good morning.
Yeah.
Now, if they turn and give me a scowl, why is it so good? I'm out of there, man. I'm rolling. I'm not sticking around to
nice talk,
to hell yeah, walk them through it, because I'm impressionable like everybody else. And if I'm around that too much, like I won't run out of optimism. I can give and give and give and give, and I don't run out of positivity. I don't run out of gratitude. I
can give some away and still have enough to support
well
myself.
Yeah. But what I can do is run out of defense to negativity. Now my defenses are thin, so if I'm around it too much, it can wear off on me.
Yeah.
And I would like to just promote the idea of who was it that said it? We used it as a quote on here not too long ago, but somebody said if you see somebody without a smile, loan them yours. Mm-hmm. It's funny how a smile and a fist bump and just saying good morning,
it goes a long way.
Man, it can change somebody's morning.
Oh yeah.
And I only do it because I had a mentor, Lance in Las Vegas, who would see me with like a scowl in the morning. No particular reason. I don't know. Hungover or something. Just didn't feel like being at work, whatever it is. And he'd be like, bro, smile. Like, you're lucky you could still be in Detroit. You're lucky to be here. Smile. All right, I'll smile. Fine. Eventually I realized that if you just forced it on yourself and then gave it to somebody else, it became real fast. Yeah. It wasn't a fake thing for very long.
So, Billy, I got to say, you're 31 now?
30.
30, still 30. You're one of the rarities when it comes to young mentors. You're one of those guys that's like lived 40 years and 30 years of life type of thing. And so I just really appreciate the fact that you had such a heart and a caring for investing in people to make sure that they made good choices. So shout out to you for that. I'm curious now, as you're kind of like finding your own way in a career, and specifically in the home services industry, I'm not sure you're at the level necessarily to begin training other plumbers yet, but it's probably not too far off. Do you still hold that passion inside of you to be like that mentor and start giving back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I enjoy seeing people thrive and do well. I see guys that have been here, some of the newer guys, and maybe they have a little bit more experience than I do, but maybe not in the same style of work. So, if I see a guy that's struggling, and I'm a big reader of facial expressions and just body language, and, I've always been really good at reading body language and facial expressions. And, if I see someone that seems like they're mentally struggling, I'm going to approach them and see how they're doing. It's like, yo, like, what can I help you with, man? Like, what can I do to help you go through your day and at least be all right, to deal with your day? What can I do? And I think I will always be a mentor of some sort, or just a support system. That's always something that I don't think it's gonna go away.
And do you feel like you found a home in kind of a career here with in the plumbing trades? Or do you still kind of have some passion in the back of your mind to like pursue arts or something like that you've always been interested in?
As of right now, I love what I'm doing. I do have, and it's funny, like I have friends that will talk to me and, you know, we'll have conversations here and there about different things, and they'll look at me as like, dude, you're so much happier than you were 2 years ago.
Wow.
You know, you definitely seem more passionate about what you're doing now, and you enjoy talking about it, and, you know, you definitely don't seem stressed out. So yeah, like as of right now, you know, I really enjoy what I'm doing. You know, I love doing the whole plumbing thing. I can do without some of the jobs, you know, but I'm not afraid to get down and dirty and do what I got to do to get the job done. That's not an issue for me. But yeah, I mean, I've always had a passion for fitness and nutrition. So I work out regularly as much as I can, and I try to find ways to keep my nutrition in check and that sort of thing. But I also enjoy the arts. You know, I enjoy photography, videography. I haven't dabbled in drawing or sketching in a long time, probably since like college time. But, you know, I still follow a lot of that stuff, say on Instagram or Facebook. So I really do enjoy that stuff, but probably more so in like the fitness and nutrition thing. Yeah, and I used to coach again. I coached for about 8 years. I coached pole vaulting in high school or for high school, and that was definitely one of my biggest passions. You know, I enjoyed coaching the high school kids and just mentoring them as much as possible. So, but yeah, plumbing's cool, man.
And what about your hopes and dreams, man? What are you shooting for? What are your goals here?
My goals here, man, I want good stability, and you know, I wanna live a simple life, you know, stable life, and stress free. I want to be able to enjoy myself and do the things that I want to do. I want to be able to travel, and since I've been here, I've been able to do those things no problem at all. You know, I get what I need to get done, and at the end of the day, I go home. Again, fist bumps by my coworkers, management, whatever, and they always say, "Hey, man, good job this week. Go home, take a rest, come back strong next week." You know,
back at it. Yeah. Oh, Billy, we're gonna bring this in for a landing here, and it's been so good to talk to you and hear your story. And you know, we're gonna have a couple follow-up questions for you here, but as you kind of look back on what got you to this point, you know, are there any things that stand out along the way? You know, in some of the earlier podcasts, we talked about people that made the difference. You being actually one of those in both Jon and Brandon's life.
Right.
And we talked about like left decisions, right decisions, like those types of things that made all the differences of where you could have been, the what ifs that could have happened. So are there any things in looking back over the past, you know, 10 years of your life or so since kind of working your way out of college and things, or school and high school and everything, that have kind of made the difference for you to get to this place?
Yeah, you know, there was multiple times in my life where I just kind of sat down, and again, everyone has demons, and they don't know how to deal with those problems from their past. For me, I was tired of having to look back into the past and say, you know, this part of my life sucked. So at one point I was like, you know what, let me sit down with my demons and talk it out, and let's figure out a solution and be comfortable with the things that I went through in my past, because they happen for a reason. You know, just like anyone else, those things happen for a reason, but they've led to where I'm at now, and I'm definitely grateful for everything that I've been through.
Well, before we let you go, John Perez texted me, as you might imagine, when he found out you were recording your podcast right now. And he said, hold on. Yo, bro, you got Billy in there? I got some questions for him.
On the hot seat here, Billy.
Here we go.
All right. These are some pretty hard-hitting questions, so just, you want to take a drink of water there before we get going? Why is Jon better looking than you?
Oh, man, I don't know what mirror he's looking at, but definitely not, man. He's still ugly in my eyes.
Okay, and I quote, but on a serious note, how do you even stand next to such a man?
How do I? Is he talking about himself?
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
man, little boy,
And
little boy.
do you ever feel you'll get to John's level of communication and income?
I mean, I'm working on it. I'll give him that.
I'll give him that.
He's had a leg up on me for a while now. So
He's going off.
but no, John's doing great. So I definitely look up to John for what he's been through and what he's doing now. He's doing great things, man. Doing great things.
This one's actually from Katie.
Okay.
That would be Katie Perez, Mrs. John Perez. Is John your hero?
You know what?
These seem like one-sided questions. I gotta
These
say.
are definitely one-sided questions. But you know what? Again, I've seen Perez grow up and seeing from where his life environment came from into what he is now. Yeah, he's always been an optimistic and just a great guy. Never mad. Just like anyone else, we deal with stresses here and there, but, he's always been optimistic in his life. And, yeah, I'd say, I look up to you, dude. You've done a lot with your life, and why not?
Yeah, that's awesome. I look up to John in ways
Good guy,
too.
man.
Yep.
Well, Billy, like I said, it's been so good to have you on today. And I wanted to give you one opportunity at the end of the show here to kind of speak back into Brandon's life. He's not in the room with us, and I'm sure he'll catch this podcast when it releases. But, if you could look back there, speak to your brother there a little bit about, what you feel about him and where he's at in his life, what would that be?
Man, yeah, I'm super proud of the kid. He's done a lot of good stuff, and dude, he makes a lot of crazy decisions in his life. Becoming a cop was definitely one of those crazy decisions. I remember looking at my mom, and she was like, my heart's gonna drop if anything happens to him, and blah blah blah. But I was like, you know what? I'm all for it, man. He deserves everywhere he's going in life right now because he's worked so hard for it. And no one's gonna take that away from him. So yeah, I'm super proud of him.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That makes three of us in this room.
Yeah, and
don't worry, we're gonna have Nate edit out the part where you said blah 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 after you quoted your mom. Brandon has told me many times that he's still afraid of her.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, don't mess with mama.
He said I'm in full SWAT gear. I'm still afraid.
I
Mom
think I still have PTSD from her swinging them freaking flip flops at us growing up, dude, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, Billy, it's been a privilege to have you on. This has been a great conclusion to our 3-part series here. And to kind of give you some feedback, man, we're also proud of you. Thanks so much for being a part of our team, for always having that optimistic attitude, for carrying yourself in the way of a true professional, and for taking care of business no matter your past and making a choice in your life to make it better each day. So well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey, that's it for our podcast and the conclusion of this series. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. It's been awesome to hear from 3 young men, up-and-coming leaders in the plumbing organization as well as in the law enforcement. And it's been so good to hear from them and their stories. All of them were encouraging in different ways. And yeah, I hope that's meant something to you. So if you find yourself, looking at your life and kind of wondering what you want to do, the home services industry is calling because it needs great people like these 3 gentlemen that we've had on our show here recently. It needs great people like that who can get in and who can serve clients and who can take the opportunities that are presented to them. And man, there is abundance of opportunities for mentorship and mentoring in the industry, whether you're on the student side or the teacher side. That's basically how the industry is built upon the backs of people who train the next generation up. And so whether you're an experienced veteran and you are the one who's doing the teaching, please invest in somebody out there. Pick somebody up and talk to them, help them learn in whatever ways they need to. Or you're the student and you're just looking for a great opportunity. The home services platform is where it's at. And that's where we're going to leave this podcast. We challenge you each and every week to make a better you, to look in that mirror and find your next level, and to choose to wake up each morning and waste no day.